Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. As you guys can see, the Corvette is still on the lift. We're still in the middle of this bumper project with the C6Z stuff that we're doing, as well as the water pump stuff. You should have already seen that video. Those should have been the last few weeks' videos, but we're actually waiting for parts to finish up that water pump video. So when that comes in, we'll finish that video up. But right now, I actually have another project I need to do while the bumper's off the car. You guys will remember, like, about maybe a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, I installed a tow hook on the front of the Corvette. And the one time I actually used it, my car actually died about an 1/8 mile outside of the neighborhood. Like, literally, like, right outside the gate of the neighborhood, the car died. What had happened was the power cable between the battery and the fuse panel here had actually melted. And if you guys remember, we relocated the battery to the back. So part of that project, I actually ended up replacing all of the battery cables, including that wire. But when that happened, when I got to the house, you guys will see that the tow hook is there. When I got to the house and I was towing the car up over the curb, when we hit that curb, it actually snapped the welds on the bolts that were holding the bumper bracket to the bumper. You guys remember, we cut a hole out and tried to weld the nuts, flat. But when we hit that curb, I guess just the up and down motion just snapped all the welds on that bolt. But what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna weld it to a 1/4 inch thick piece of steel. And then somehow we're going to shove that piece of steel into the bumper. That way we actually have a thick metal plate that we're trying to weld to. And you're not just trying to weld to a really thin, because the sheet metal over there, I swear, it's got to be like a 16 inch thick on the bumper. So it's not real thick at all. So what we're going to do is use this 1/4 inch angle iron and cut this off the length we need, drill our holes, and weld those nuts on. And that way, we've got a much more sturdy piece of metal that we're trying to weld to. All right, guys, we got our 2x2 angle iron marked out, and we're gonna be using the piece to the left. We're gonna cut it here, then we're gonna cut it down the middle, because I'm just not sure. It would be a real pain to try to get a piece of angle iron within that bumper. So if it's flat with just 2 nuts on the top of it, that should be pretty easy to get through. So let's go ahead, fire this bandsaw up, and we'll start cutting. All right, so we got the first cut done. Now I'm going to cut it down the middle like we've done in the past. Just cut it like that. And then we'll clean the piece up and get it ready to start drilling, then measuring and welding and all that good stuff. So we made our 2 marks that we need to drill. You guys will also notice that I took off all the mill scale. Well, I just used my angle grinder with a flapper wheel on it for maybe like 2 minutes aside. It was real quick, but we got this cut down. And I already took the whole bracket and I tried to stick it in the bumper. It is very close, but that's kind of how we want it. We want it to be tight inside the bumper. And this should slip in without issue. We've got, probably an 1/8 inch of space on each side. So let's go ahead, get this drilled out, and we'll just get our 2 holes done. All right, guys, I have the bracket mocked up into place, and I do have the bolts actually going through it. What I'm gonna do is tack the nuts on 2 sides. Then I'm gonna take the bolts out. I basically don't wanna weld the bolts to the bracket, because that would be really bad. But so obviously we're gonna do that. We'll be using the Vulcan MIG welder, well, multi-function welder. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and change the diameter of our wire, and it's 0.30. Thickness of the material It says 7 gauge, but I think it's, okay, it is 1/4 inch. Let's hit confirm. And yeah, we should be good. So we've got the, oh, we need to turn the gas on. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's press it. Yep. All right, gas is on. All right, guys, we got our protective arm sleeves on, heavy duty gloves, and we should be good to go. This isn't gonna be, shouldn't be too complicated, but let's go ahead and tack one of these sides up and let's just see how this goes. And guys, that's the nylock melting, but that's all right. All right, so we got that one. Alright guys, I actually got both bolts out. That was kind of a pain, but I did end up swapping hardware with one of the nuts because that one melted to it and didn't want to reuse it and spend time trying to clean it off. So we got both nuts tacked, and you'll see that we have a pair of welding clamps. Put that on there just to make sure the piece doesn't move around. And now I'm just going to weld out the rest of the nuts. Alright guys, we're back in front of the Corvette and we're going to be finishing up the tow hook project. I have been Hulk smashing on this car for the last hour trying to get the pieces of the bumper out. And what I mean by that is these two pieces of, I'm not sure if you'd call it corrugated steel, but the later model Corvettes, you can literally see right through the bumper. You see through one end all the way to the other end. This might only be a 2005 thing, this might be a 2006 thing, but basically, this twisted steel sits right in the frame. You guys can actually kind of see the outline of it right there. But it's spot welded on the top and bottom. And like I said, the other year cars don't have it, so I'm not really sure why mine does. And it's definitely in the way of trying to get our bracket into the bumper. So I basically had to hit the top of the steel, the bottom of the steel. I mean, this stuff's pretty thin. It might be a 16-inch thick, if that. But as you guys can see, I basically targeted the top, targeted the bottom, split the steel, and we were able to get both pieces out. Now that they're out of the way, you guys can see we'll actually be able to slide our bracket with our nuts on it into the bumper. We'll line it up with the two holes down there, and we'll be able to put our hardware in from the bottom. Alright guys, so we finally got the tow hook installed and tightened down. Here's what it looks like. Basically this fits in the slot where the mesh grill is on the Z06, and that's where this will stick out. I initially had a set of washers installed here. It's what I had put in last time. And I've just found that the washers actually make it kind of loose. Like it's not as a solid mount as two pieces of steel, flat pieces of steel being put next to each other. The only other way to make this setup stronger would be actually to weld a plate from the tow hook mount and have it go vertical, and that way you could tie into the bumper structure up here as well. That's really the only other thing I could see that we might do in the future if this is set up, if we have any more problems with it. But if you guys can see down the channel, we have our plate there. We've got our nuts welded to that plate. and we've got our grade 8 hardware sticking up through both the mount, the bumper, and our plate on top. So this is all tightened down. And yeah, this is pretty much gonna wrap up the tow hook project. All right guys, so that's pretty much gonna be it. As you guys can see, we put the bumper cover back on, we put the tow hook in, and I did actually paint the inside of that tunnel, the bumper tunnel, a little bit, just because we did have a little bit of dirt and grime in there. I cleaned that up. 2 quick coats of paint and it looks great. So other than that, this was pretty much a simple project. You just gotta tear the car down a lot, and like I said earlier in the video, if you guys have a Z06 or a newer car, you don't have to bash out those 2 little side pieces. I believe it's unique only to the 2005 Corvette C6. I'm not sure about C5, but definitely 2005 will have it. I know the aluminum cars don't have it, and like I said, I don't think the later steel frame cars have it either. So if you guys want to keep up with the Corvette content and all the other projects we got going around here, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on your bell notifications as well. That way you know when I upload new content. If you guys want to help support the channel, check out the links down below, and make sure you check out our website, BonecrrusherSS.com. Thanks guys. Have a great one.